want to talk about today. What are some of the funniest, craziest things that you ever heard as an elementary teacher, as a middle school teacher, high school, college, that make you go, what are you talking about type of conversations? For me, some of those craziest things have actually not been from my students. They've actually been from the other adults. Hi, my name is Natalie. I have been an elementary school teacher for the past 12 years, and I have my master's in professional counseling. And I would say there's not much that surprises me anymore, except for some things that adults say, especially things that adults say about children in particular. So that got me thinking, what are some of the 10 misconceptions within teaching that I have heard over the past 12 years? And that's what I want to bring to you today. So here it is, the 10 misconceptions of teaching. Misconception number 1, that all children come to school as a blank slate. I don't know about you, but this is one that gets me the most irritated, because you can think about this in 2 different ways. One being that all children are just empty blank slates ready to be filled with knowledge and information because they know nothing about the world around them. Or you can see it from the standpoint of that it's a brand new day type of a blank slate. But if you ask any preschool teacher, any kindergarten teacher, any daycare teacher, anybody that works with very little children, they will tell you that no child ever enters their academic career completely with a blank slate. We also know that the years between 0 and 5 are some of the most foundational years of a human's life. So that means that as an educator, we're actually kind of late to the party. That means in utero that they're based off of their environment, they're already understanding what is stress. What does it mean to be in a calm, loving environment? Or what is it like to be in a high stress situation where their little nervous system is already being formed to be very tense, to be very hyper aware and hyper vigilant, right? Of everything around them. And then what happens when they are born? Do they have parents that are responsive to their needs, or do they learn to understand that when they cry, no one comes to help them? Or when they cry, somebody comes and is very angry and upset with them? What happens when they do something wrong? What happens when they make a mistake? Are they laughed at? Are they bullied? Are they put down? Or are they in an environment that encourages and looks and laughs and loves them, and they're learning that the world is a safe and loving place to be? So each of those factors impacts a child's development and impacts what they believe to be, understands their worldviews. Once I had this student who was brilliant. She would come to school ready to learn. She asked lots of great questions. She engaged with her peers. But then whenever she made a mistake, or when something went wrong and she perceived that an adult was even mildly upset with her, she would close her eyes, plug her ears, and start running. And at times, she would get this very glossed over, glazed over look and run and elope from the classroom. So she starts dissociating, she elopes, and she's trying to close her eyes and plug her ears and run. Those are very dangerous things together. So we would be running after her and calling her name, letting her know, it's okay, you're safe, you're okay. And it was like she couldn't hear it. So after a couple weeks of this happening, I asked her mom, this is what's happening and with her. What would be a good support? What could I do for her to make sure that she feels loved and safe in the classroom? And the mom just stopped and stared at me and goes, oh, actually, here's what happened when I was with her ex. is that whenever this child did something wrong, he put this child in the middle of the room, got all these other kids around her, whether it was siblings, cousins around her, to laugh and make fun of her, and would make these really mean, scary faces. Well, now it makes sense why she would close her eyes and plug her ears and try to run. She was trying to do what she needed to do to be safe in that moment. Closing her eyes to the scary things that are around her, plugging her ears to the lies and the untruths that were being told and shouted and leered at her, and escaping, saying, I need to get safe. So this wasn't one of those, she's just being avoidant and defiant type of situations. Her behavior had a lot of meaning and depth to why she was doing what she was doing in the first place. The second way of thinking about a blank slate is more thinking about it from the standpoint that kids come to school as a blank slate. That whatever happened the day before doesn't even matter. It doesn't really matter what just happened the hour or 30 or 5 minutes before they entered the classroom, because they're in a new place. They don't want to talk about it, and we are just all starting over. Once they're in routines, they will be fine. And once we get going with the day, they can just put it out of their mind. Those were things that have been told to me before about helping children be more of a blank slate when it comes to the school day. So that's not real of thinking that a child can just come into the day and erase all other thoughts. They might have seen their parents get into a big fight, or they might be hungry. They might have imagined that they ruined their parents' birthday the night before because they had this temper tantrum. Or they might have seen somebody that they loved get really hurt the night before. All of those situations impact an adult. Why would we assume that they wouldn't also impact a child and their ability to concentrate in the classroom? That's why it's so important to say, we're not checking whatever happened at the door. There are lots of people that love you and want to make sure that you are safe. Here is what we can do to evaluate and assess how you're doing today. Not just me being present and available to you in case you need something, but also let's do a little emotion check-in each morning and each afternoon and in the evening as well, just to tell me, how are you feeling about coming to school? Did anything happen like at home that you want to talk to me about, that would feel good to talk to me about? Do you want to talk to someone else that you know is loving and safe and an adult? How are you feeling about going home now? Do you need any support as we're transitioning back home? That's why it is so important to talk and allow kids to have a space to communicate their needs with you. Which leads me to fallacy number 3, that recommendations for adults aren't necessarily the same recommendations that we should have for children. Emotions, in my understanding, don't have an age limit. It doesn't matter if you're 9 minutes old or if you're 99 years old. If you're going to get angry, you're going to get angry. If you're going to be anxious and nervous, you're going to be anxious and nervous. If you're going to be sad and depressed, doesn't have an age limit. Emotions aren't something that we look at saying, are you old enough to experience anxiety yet? Are you young enough to really know what it feels like to be in love? Because I've had first graders that have come up to me and told me, guess what? I have a boyfriend. And then the next day go, my heart is broken. I don't have my boyfriend anymore. Okay. Emotions and feelings do not have an age limit. So what do we do about it? Well, a lot of the same coping strategies that we would give to adults also work with children. Except for some reason, sometimes I'm told that box breathing is good for everybody. Okay, candle breathing is good for everybody. But if we really want to help children learn to be in the world, then we should just really make sure that they're sitting down quietly, silently at their desk for multiple hours a day. No, that's not how we talk to adults about this. We tell adults to get up and move around. We tell adults that it's important to move your bodies to regulate. That if they're tired in a meeting, go ahead and stand up. Walk around in the back if you need to. And so that's not the same with kids. What about if we say that it's important for everybody to have autonomy? It's important for kids to know that they should be hydrating themselves. Well, where does the water go then? So if you are hydrating yourself, I don't know about you, but for me, it kind of has to be released somewhere else, if you know what I mean. But kids are the exact same way. So I love to be able to have like a check-in and check-out chart, to be able to say to them, listen to what your body needs. Does your body just need a quick movement break? Let me know, because I have some errands that you can run. Or with one student, they had a very hard transition back from recess. Well, halfway between recess, the recess door, and our classroom door was the office door. So I went and talked to our main office lady, loved her to death, and I said, hey, here's the situation. We have like a 5-minute transition from recess as we're getting settled in and whatever. How would you feel about if this one student, please, just kind of like talk to you and like hung out with you for 5 minutes? You could have this child run any errands that you wanted. She's amazing, love her to death. And the person at the front desk, our receptionist, was like, oh my gosh, yes, I love her. Absolutely, let her come in. So I was like, win-win. So halfway between our recess and our classroom door, I would look and say that child's name and say, okay, go over there. And she would go in there and just talk. They'd hang out. She'd run some errands. And like 5 to 10 minutes later, she'd come back up to the classroom completely regulated. And everyone else had finished their transitions. We were sitting down, had just finished the little mini intro to our science or our history unit. And that was it. And then we kept going with our day. Coping strategies are good for all ages. Autonomy is good for all ages. Being aware of student needs is important for all ages as well. Sometimes behaviors can be tricky, and we need to remember that some of the recommendations that we give to adults are also beneficial to children, which leads me to fallacy number 4. All behaviors is just disobedience. Or it's just defiance, or it's rebellion, or they're just being naughty little kids, or just silly little kids. You know, they'll figure it out as they go along. But what if behavior is actually a cry for help? What if behavior is the manifestation of a much deeper rooted problem, concern, question? Then we have to understand what the behavior is trying to tell us. Some people don't believe that behavior is about needs, but I firmly believe that behavior is about needs. The need might be that this child needs more structure in their life. The need might be that they need to understand right from wrong, or the impact that lying has on relationships. But it also could be a deeper cry for a need of going, my world does not feel safe. My world feels out of control. The people that are in my life that are supposed to love and support and protect me are the people that are making my world feel unsafe, or they're not available to me. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions that I have to debunk and undo year after year after year, whether it's administration, whether it's colleagues, or the parents themselves too, of saying, okay, well, let's look at the patterns of this child's behavior. For example, I had a student who was brilliant and just absolutely lovely, but was verbally aggressive towards other kids, and was trying to receive a lot of negative attention by being a bully to other kids. So tried a lot of things with this child. Went back and talked to previous teachers, and they said also, we tried a lot of different things. Talked to the parents. They've also tried a lot of things. So now we step back. Is it me? Is there anything that I am doing that may be contributing to this child's behavior? Okay, some things that I could tweak and change, maybe. Is there anything within the environment that's contributing to this child's behavior? Okay, anything that I can tweak and change there? And if both of those answers are no, I've done everything that I can think of to do, and I've asked for help for each of those situations, then it's time to say, what is it about this child, and what is it about patterns of their behavior that are staying consistent? Well, this child was not verbally aggressive, and they were very on track and sticking with the group and encouraging when it was whole group instruction. They also did fantastic when it was independent work time. That meant that when it was free choice or transitions, or when an adult was not within a 6-foot radius, oh, that's not even true. That's not even true. It had to be me or my teaching partner that was within a 6-foot radius, because specialist teachers, it was like still acting all types of crazy. So instead of going, okay, well, what are those behaviors and like what is happening in those transitional times? Oh, could it be that he's very anxious? Could it be that everything feels out of control and the only thing that he has control over is his own words, and I can control and manipulate and bully people to do what I want to do. Now my world feels more in control. That's why we looked at patterns of behavior. And then we started to give coping skills and support to be able to help him go, here's how we can stay safe, even when things are unpredictable. Here's what we know to be true. Here's how we can stay consistent and kind with our friends, and come ask a teacher, a safe person, for help if you need it. Another example, it was a child that was told to me was always lying and always stealing. I was like, that's interesting. I wonder why. I'm a big why person. Like, I love to ask why, and I always have, and probably always will. And so when they came and told me that this child was lying and stealing, my first question was, I wonder why. Why does he have the need to lie and to steal? And within the first couple of days of school, his little child tried to take something that was really small and really insignificant, honestly, with him home. So then I was like, oh, you know what, buddy? That's just gonna stay here. I know that you would really like to take that with you, but that's going to be here for you next time in case you need it then. And then he just looked at me and put it down. But then the same thing happened the next day and the next day and the next day. So by like day 4, I was going, we are having the same interaction every single day. And it was the same piece every single day. I could have just given in and could have been like, go ahead, take it. But I went, but this is only happening when I call his name for dismissal. Not any other time during the day. Never even goes over to this object, or because it's like a big bucket of like manipulatives, any other time during the day, ever, except right before dismissal. Then I started noticing in day like 4, another pattern, which was this child during dismissal would go to a corner of the room. And I didn't notice that before because there's a bunch of other kids like around. And I didn't realize that he was like going to a corner, like as far away from the door as possible. Then when his name was called, he would just get real silent, say goodbye to his friends, and then try to take the thing and then look back at me. And I would say the same thing. You are loved and you are safe. And that's going to be here for you tomorrow. I know. Well, once I figured out that pattern, then that Monday, I started to say a new thing to him. I said, you would really like to take that with you because that maybe, does it remind you of like the classroom and how safe you are here? You are loved and you are safe. And I'm going to be here tomorrow and your friends are going to be here for you tomorrow and you're going to be okay. And we're here if you need help. And instead of looking at me like real angry, he got relaxed, went and let go of the piece. We did that same routine with generally the same thing that I would say to him for 2 weeks. And every single time it was the same. That's why we have to look at the behaviors because the child's home life was very tense, high explosive home. And this child was very stuck in the middle and feeling very, 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 very tense. But something about being at school, something about that classroom was making him feel loved and safe and calm that he wanted to just take a little piece of that with him home. That's not about defiance. That's not about disobedience. That's not even about stealing. That's about this child wanting a remembrance of how amazingly different school and home life feels like. Well, that's a little bit easier to solve than just saying he's just being disobedient. No, he's not. His behavior was trying to tell us something. Which leads me to fallacy number 5, which is that time heals all wounds. Have you ever heard that saying before, where time heals all wounds? Well, it could. It might heal in the wrong way though. So like if a child broke his arm and we just say, time will heal that wound. Well, sure, yeah, it will. But it will all like be bent up and not healed correctly. And then it takes actually more time to have surgery, probably re-break and set the bone so that it's healing in the right way. We could say the same thing about our trauma and suffering. If we leave it to time and space alone, then sure, healing might be really unhealthy coping strategies that lead to even more unhealthy behavior, which therefore could lead to very destructive lifestyles. That's why when we say healing, it's fine. Time will heal those wounds all by themselves. They don't need to talk to anybody. They will be just fine. Of going, no, them looking like they're fine and standing and sitting and being isn't necessarily a sign of true deep healing. Talking about it won't make it worse. You talking about the parent that died or the situation of divorce at home isn't going to make that situation worse for that child because they're already feeling the emotional weight and heaviness that comes from death and divorce and grief and a loss and abuse and a loneliness and separation and confusion or sickness. They're already feeling the weight of that. And so for you to be able to say, would you like to talk about it? Is there anything that you need help with? or I want you to know that there are lots of people in the school that love and care for you. You can talk to me, you could talk to a previous teacher, you could talk to the school counselor, you could talk to the principal. There are lots of people that are here to help you. They might walk through that door themselves. Other times we might notice different behaviors within our children, saying, okay, they are dysregulated. And dysregulation might mean being withdrawn and quiet, or over the top, loud and in your face and obnoxious. Or it might be that they are like trying to get everything perfect, and they're like, okay, I can do it, I'm fine. No, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm really okay. You might see it in their grades as they start to tank. You might see it in friendships. You might notice them doing the complete opposite of what they used to do. They used to love playing at recess with their friends, and now they just want to sit quietly alone. All of those are signs of distress and help. Not to say that we shouldn't give kids space if they need it, but to be able to say, hey, if you want to sit alone, do you want to just like sit here near to me? Or, okay, hey, I've noticed that you've been sitting alone like more often at recess. Would you like to sit quietly in so-and-so's office and then maybe talk to her about how you're feeling, or talk to him about like what you're thinking and processing through? You're going through a lot of really deep, heavy things. So giving kids a voice and encouraging their voice to come through art, through writing, or through just speaking or acting it out, for a safe person is creating a very safe environment for them to be in. When I think about some of the more tense divorce situations that I've had with students, I think about how I, as the teacher, on a daily basis, have more contact with that one child than either one of their parents that is sharing custody. That means I have eyes on this child. I see when they switch between homes and the impact that has on the child. I am seeing that what happens at one house is impacting their daily life, or versus the other home, and what happens there, because I get to see them all day, every day as an elementary teacher. Therefore, I also started thinking that how I am creating a safe place for them, and how as that consistent person, I want to be able to allow them to feel safe enough to come and talk to me about anything that they might need. Which brings me to fallacy number 6, which is it happened a long time ago. It can't really be impacting them today. That goes right hand in hand with time heals all wounds. And you're like, just because something happened a very long time ago does not mean that pain can't still be triggered today. I still remember this apple tea party that I had with my aunt before I knew that she got cancer, and then very shortly afterwards she died. We sat, it was just her and I, and we sat in her cozy little dining room, and we had all things apples. She had apple pie and fresh apples and dip, and we had apple tea, and we put like cinnamon in our tea and little cream, and we had beautiful tea sets, and we had these little like mat things that were like apple themed. And the lights were kind of dim and low, and there was mahogany wood everywhere, and we just sat and we talked. I was 6. I still remember that. And I still remember that so vividly in my mind, because just a few months later, when I would go visit her again, and she's lying in her bed and dying from cancer, and she no longer looked like my aunt anymore. I still remember that too. I still remember when I eat an apple or I see apple tea in the grocery store, I immediately think of my aunt. Time couldn't heal the wound, fill in all of the holes of how much I loved and I miss her. But what it did is that I changed as I keep remembering her memory and thinking about her of how much I want to be like her, and that feeling that she gave me of love and safety, how I also want to bring that to other people, especially my students. Yes, it happened a long time ago, but it still has an impact today. Which brings me to fallacy number 7. They just need a fresh start. You're right. Kids, year after year, do need a fresh start. They need somebody to say, we're passing the torch on to you the next day. We believe in this child. Yeah, they had a tough year last year, but they're going to be okay. And they're going to make it through. They're going to do great in this next year. Fresh starts are good. Fresh starts are really healthy. But it doesn't mean that we negate everything else that has happened in their previous life. Sometimes I think that within education, we don't want to taint the view that other teachers might have of a particular student. So we don't give all of the relevant information about that child to their next teacher. But we're professionals. And so it's not gossiping to be able to say, hey, can I inform you of what happened last year? Can I inform you of some very important coping strategies that might help this particular student transition into your classroom well this year? That's not gossip. That's setting this child up for success. So we can say, we believe in you, I love you, and I support you. I am here for you. You most definitely deserve a fresh start. But here are the tools that I'm empowering your teacher with, that I've already equipped you with, to make sure that you both have a wonderful year together. Which brings me to fallacy number 8, which is, they seem fine to me. Have you ever had an administrator that has seen a child and go, they don't seem like they're anxious to me. Well, they don't seem like they have trauma to me. Look at how well they're sitting. Look at how well they are doing in your classroom. Well, compared to previous years, they actually seem to be doing fine. Look at their grades. I once had a student who was coming from a very deep trauma background and had seen some things and experienced things at a very, very, very young age. And when children are traumatized, sometimes their hurt self gets stuck. So we go back to that age when they were first hurt. And so for this child, it was around babyhood. Like they were like an infant when some of the most traumatic things that can happen to a child were beginning to happen. And it continued on for 4, 5, 6 years for this one child. So when this child entered kindergarten, they had already a slew of coping strategies, unhealthy coping strategies, and survival instinct behaviors that was about self-preservation and protection, which meant that I don't trust anybody, nobody is safe, the world is a dangerous place to be, so this is all the things that I'm going to do to make sure that I protect myself. And then as the year went on, as they're gaining new friendships, now those people also can join that bubble with them. Oh, so not only am I protecting myself, I'm also protecting my friends. So now I'm doing all of these behaviors: punching, hitting, kicking, yelling, screaming, lying, destruction, property destruction, avoidant behaviors, to not only protect myself, but also because someone said something mean about one of my good friends. When you have those types of behaviors in those types of students, and we start to teach them that the world is safe, This is what true healing looks like. We can know the difference between safe and unsafe people, safe and unsafe situations, that safe people can be trusted. You can see their anxiety begin to lower. We begin to see small changes. That does not mean that they are completely healed, because in a classroom situation, I can't do that work. Now, in my job as a professional counselor, I can get really deep with their past trauma and begin that healing journey. But I cannot do that in an elementary classroom setting. So I can give them a lot of tools, and we can read lots of books, and I can bring in different people, and we can have really good, deep conversations. But it's still not about what we see is happening on the outside. So this one child, when they got to this older grade, late upper elementary, and the administration and I were talking, and I said, I still have some concerns, and this is why, and I'm trying to figure out how best to support this child, and hoping to connect with the school counselor and the parents. And the admin was like, why would you do that? They're totally fine. I've seen their grades. I've looked at behaviors, and he's not frequenting various school counselor or the principal's office or student support as frequently as previous years. And look how silently he is sitting. That's when I knew that we had a big, big problem. And we appear regulated, then everything must be fine on the inside. But that's just not how it is. You can see a beautiful cup on the outside and it become completely dirty and a mess on the inside. And that's why we have to look deeper at saying, okay, the behaviors have decreased, but now how do we maintain that? And how do we get to the deeper rooted problem? So that leads me to fallacy number 9. All topics are just taboo, and kids just aren't ready or capable enough to hold the information. One of the ways that I love to begin various hard conversations in my classroom, intro it, is through books, actually. I love stories. I love being able to talk with my kids about the characters and the setting and the problems and solutions that are within the book itself. But I also love to be able to sneak in some social emotional learning in there too, by saying things like, how would you solve this problem? What would happen if you were the character? And imagine your mom saying something like that to you. Imagine your dad saying something to you. Now think about your parents. Would they respond the same way as this character in the book's dad would? Let's say that this dad was very safe. He lets this child express himself and talk about his feelings and why he's frustrated. But what would happen if the dad just walked up and slapped the kid? What would happen if he pushed him? What would happen if he just started yelling at the kid? What would that do to his heart and his brain? What would happen? Or another thing would be within a movie. If we're watching a movie, of saying, okay, let's figure out all of the cause and effects that we can find in this movie. And the overarching theme of this movie is friendship. How do we talk and think about friendship in the context of this movie? And so as we're working through this, I'm connecting to my students their ability to say their own life experiences, but through the lens of a movie, which makes it just a little bit more far removed and so not so intense about How many people in here are being yelled at by their parents? How many people have felt manipulated before or bullied by other people, right? Like, we can have those deeper conversations once we open up that door. So those are my 9 crazy common misconceptions within teaching. The 9 craziest fallacies that I've heard. But number 10 might surprise you. This is the last one, and it's kind of a weird shift to a totally different end of the teaching misconceptions, which is number 10, fallacy number 10, which is no is emotionally damaging to children. Now, this might seem like an odd one to just kind of throw in at the end because it maybe doesn't go along with the rest of my stories that I've integrated together, except for the fact that I believe that no is a really powerful word. And if I look at this sign or this sign, they all tell me something. One tells me to stop, don't do anything else, stop. And the other one is telling me to slow down and get ready to stop or to go, right? Both of those are not emotionally damaging to me because they're important boundaries. No and stop are boundary words. So why are we not telling children no? Why are we not telling children to stop? I get the gentle parenting thing. I do. I understand what they're trying to do within gentle parenting of redirecting and correcting behavior in a way that's more intentional. I agree. I think that that's super healthy, actually. And in my classroom, I've seen some really good results of that, actually, compared to previous years. What I have not seen a good result of is children who have never been told the boundaries before. When you think of when you need to tell your kids to stop, or no, thank you, or not right now, or no, that's not an acceptable behavior, or no, we're not going to be able to do this right now. When do you find yourself saying no or stop? Is it just randomly, no, or stop that right now? Okay, well, there's a middle ground. That's kind of crazy. But so is just letting kids never hear no or stop before. Because no and stop are really important words. When I tell my students no or stop, it's always, always, always in a safety situation. It's always in the context of a relationship safety concern. No, we do not talk to our friends that way. Oh, stop, breathe. We do not hit our friends when we're upset or angry. Oh, I know you would really like to stay out for recess more, but not right now. We actually have to stay as a group and come inside right now. But maybe we can stay out a little bit later tomorrow. Let's look at the schedule together and figure out, can we go out a little early, or can we save up time and maybe have some more extra recess on Friday? But today we have to go inside. Or bigger things of going, when I teach science and I'm doing the human body, I'm teaching about body safety. I teach about body safety actually every year. Especially around Valentine's Day is a great time to talk about like what love is and what love is not. Anytime that you're teaching about the human body. October is kind of a good time. Right before the holiday season is a great time to talk about body safety with kids, which is also when we start telling them no means no. So if they are not learning that no means no, stop means stop in other safety situations, how are they going to apply that suddenly and randomly to body safety? So for me, I think that it's totally fine to tell your kids no and stop, because it gives them a perspective of how important those two boundary words are. When a toddler is crawling over to an outlet, that's a pretty good time to very quickly intervene. When you see a child that's maybe making toast for the first time, try to get the toast out with a fork, that's a pretty good time to very quickly say, stop, no. Or when you see a child that is running with a knife, that's a good time to say, no, stop. Running into the street, no, stop. If you are seeing someone, a child at any age, get really, 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 really angry and try to hit somebody or kick them or push them or start yelling at them, that's a good time to set up a very clear boundary. So for me, I think that it is important for my children to understand that when I say no, I mean no. When I say stop, I mean stop. And contextually go, actually, Miss Natalie doesn't say no all that often. I actually don't say stop all that often. I had a child once that was so proud of her math page and she wanted to put glitter all over her math page. Well, 100% you should. You worked so hard at all of those problems and you did great. And this was a child that was struggling in math, so she wanted to rip it out of her book and show her parents and wanted to decorate it with glitter. And I'm like, win. 100%. You want to do that? Absolutely you can. If I'm giving my children like a writing lesson, sometimes at the end I'll say, here is my idea of what you can do to publish your writing. And I'll explain to them, this book idea or this comic or this trifold, or they could do anything that they want to with it. So I say, absolutely, those are just my ideas. No, if you have a better idea and you want to think about it and God really inspires you to do something different, 100% do that. But what I need from you baseline is a handwritten 3-paragraph writing essay, or like use it just an essay, right? From you as you're published. Now then you can take that and publish it however you want to. That's your final draft. That's the one that I'm grading. You publish it however you want to, but that's the one that I'm copying and reading and can do anything with. I'm a pretty flexible person, but there are very clear boundaries that I uphold for my kids. And so that's the random misconception fallacy number 10, right thrown in there at the end. I know it's kind of controversial, but those are all of my 10 fallacies that I have. What are some of the craziest things that you have heard within your teaching career? Go ahead and leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for all of the work that you do with children. Thank you for all the ways that you help children to feel loved and safe every day in your classroom. And so here we go. Let's get practical.